All the following items will be approved by one vote unless any board member desires to have a separate vote on any or all of these items. The consent agenda consists of discussion, consideration, and approval of the following items 4A through 4J.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Garrett, motion.
Second.
Caleb, second. How you vote, Caleb?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Okay, other reports, principal reports.
October was a great month with fun events. Our word of the weeks for October were kindness, grit, cooperation, and attitude. Third grade presented a week full of things over kindness. Second grade did some lessons over grit, since that was the word of the week, and it stood for gratitude, resilience, integrity, and tenacity. And they also had some guest speakers from the high school come over and talk. Let's see, first grade did cooperation, and they did some activities where it shows how if you work together, the outcome is better. And then kindergarten did attitude, and they had some really fun activities planned as well for Holly Ho. 50th day of school, we celebrated dressing up like in the 50s. Each class was challenged to bring 50 items of a choice that they wanted to donate to the local food pantry, and working together, they brought in over 600 items to donate, and so it wasn't a perfect example of cooperation. Our first 9 weeks AR trip was to Pewar Farms in Hydro. Our faculty members and our students, it's always great to take them somewhere else because we always get great compliments from other schools that were there. So we had a 10-acre corn maze, 7-acre playground, and a hayride around the farm. They also did a presentation over beef as well that was really cool. Pre-K and K students enjoyed a field trip to Kenny Farms. Many parents came and volunteered to take a group of students for the day. The Spook Parade was successful because of participation and involvement of our local businesses and residents. Red Ribbon Week was October 25th to 29th. Students dressed up and learned important information. NHS and Stuco students taught our students many lessons, one being how to identify the differences in candy and medicine. K in first grade shared the win of the participation challenge with 92.25% participation. 71 elementary students earned a spot in the Rail Club. Pre-K won a pizza party from Jiffy Trip by raising over $160 to help with Oklahoma Children's Hospital, and other classes raised around $60 apiece. The Veterans Program will be held November 11th at 9:30 in the Multi-Purpose Building. And basketball kicks off today with games in Cherokee starting at 5. Tuesday, we host our first home game against Buffalo at 4:30, and then the Cherokee tournament will continue on Thursday and Saturday. And then for Thanksgiving break, school will be out the 23rd through the 26th.
High school side, October 23rd, our TSA robotics team went and competed at Alva in the best robotics competition. They spent up until basically that point building a robot, learning how to operate it. It was a remote controlled, automated robot. If nobody's ever been, they have to go around and stop other robots from destroying them and move objects around. Anyways, they got third place in that, which was pretty good. Obviously, that's the first time we've done that. Missed getting to go to Denver to a national competition if they had placed second, but they didn't do a journal, and that's kind of what kept them from getting second place, because they did so well in the actual robotics part of it. October 30th, we had 2 students qualify for the second round, so they went to the first round of all-state auditions for choir, qualified to go this Saturday, the second round for all-state choir. November 13th, that's this Saturday, we also have a student auditioning for Red Carpet Honor Band in Enid. Like she said, basketball hits the ground running today at 11 o'clock with a junior high tournament at Cherokee. And then we have a home game tomorrow night here with Buffalo and a road game Freedom next Tuesday with tournaments both weeks. So basketball is here and in a hurry. FCCLA had their district meeting October 28th at Ringwood. That is one of the biggest events that FCCLA does. It's not a competition. It's a really awesome little meeting. But FCCLA has 2 students preparing for a field day. They're going to host a field day on November 19th. Pre-K all the way through basically will be involved, but that's their start event. It deals with fitness and nutrition. FFA tomorrow has a judging and a speech contest at Panhandle State, and again on November 19th. So we're also into that showing, judging, and speech contest season. Football, obviously, had a great regular season. Playoffs start this Friday here, 7 o'clock presumably. Temple, is that correct? Temple?
Online tickets.
Online tickets, I have a meeting at, I think 9 this morning to figure out how we're going to do that. So if you think we have to pass, because I don't think it's going to be fun. Like she mentioned, the Veterans Day program is this Thursday at 9:30. 8:30, there's going to be a breakfast for veterans and their spouses. A student council is spearheading that along with FFA and SCCLA. That will be live streamed. Mr. Buckland's going to live stream that on railroaders.tv, and then it will be also on KALV radio. And then finally, last month I talked to you guys about the dropouts. I told you we're going to have 1, maybe 2. Looks like we're going to have 3. Got a couple of students that went to school here, left, went somewhere else and attended, and then dropped out. And for whatever reason, they're saying that that was us. The state's not going to correct that, so looks like we're going to have 3 dropouts. Anyways, that's all I got.
Thank you. Superintendent report.
All right, looking at our finances, go over that real quick. Our expenditures, this month it shows that we were up 40,000, but on the year we're down 80, so all that will eventually even out. The revenue is showing that we're at 46 on this month, 200 on the year. Going through here, our gross production is up about 58,000, which is a good sign. That being up that much to start the year. Again, keep in mind we've had about 110,000 in federal money, typically receive, come in, and then we've also gotten 71,000 of last year's taxes paid, so I have more money, which kind of creates a little over 200. But again, our interest, which is a sign of how the economy's doing, but it's down 30,000. So, that money we have sitting in the general fund does get invested, and that is down. So, the good sign is that we are seeing an uptake in gross production and things like that. So, maybe that'll help buffer the protests we're going to have to help a little bit. So, our building fund, as you can see, it's up just a little bit. Again, that's the collection of last year's taxes. They get split, obviously, into the building fund as well. And then our expenditures, we've got some expenditures in our building fund. Flipping over, looking at child nutrition. Child nutrition on the year shows that we're up 7,000 now. Starting next month, this will start evening out, and we'll start showing a reduction just because of the way the bill cycle works. So I kind of expect this year to go a lot like last year, although we are getting all free. All of our kids are getting free lunches. We lost last year about 10,000. I expect that to be the same. Daycare, as you see, our daycare revenue versus expenditures on the year, we are down about $3,800. Again, this is a lot better than last year, so I'm pleased to see what we've got moving in there as well. So, again, last month, gave you guys your school emails so you can get those activated, and send out a test email so we can do that this week or month. So, other than that, that's all I've got.
Okay. Discussion of board policy of student transfers.
All right, the policy you've got in hand, everybody should have one. This is a student transfer. This is a new law that's going to go into effect January 1. So again, your open transfer, your emergency transfer, emergency transfer is going out the window. It's all going to be open transfer, and basically every student can transfer into our district as long as there's 3 qualifications not to accept them. It'd be capacity, if we're at capacity, if they have attendance problems at their other school, or if they have discipline problems at their other school. Those are the 3 categories you can deny a transfer now. Things to keep in mind, we do need to set capacity, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit, but we'll have to look at this at least 4 times a year. transfers into our district. If it's a teacher's kid, they don't count as a transfer, they're more like a residency. If they're military, K-8, homeless, foster, they'll count as residency. The one thing that doesn't, if it's a support personnel, the law does not allow us to count them as residency, so they will count as transfers. I don't understand why they make that differentiation, but teachers' kids don't count as transfers, but support personnel do. That's something that I hope legislators take a little look at, because that could really hurt any school. But, again, we're going to have to, looking through this policy, we did set first Monday in April is when we start taking applications for the next year. Now, obviously, this year, starting January 1, is when the transfer goes into place. So we've got this month and next month to get this policy finalized. So for next year, we'll start taking them Monday in April. Now, why that's important is it's first come, first served. So it's not like you get to pick and choose through transfers. So the state is making an application, whether that's a paper or a portal. I've heard both, so we're waiting to figure out what they come through, and it has to be time stamped when we receive them, and they'll have first priority to come in. It'll now probably take about a week to 2 weeks for us to go through all these once we receive a transfer request, because we're going to need to go through making sure that they were in good standing with their school. We got to look at our capacity numbers, so on and so forth. So it might take a little bit longer than it did before to allow a kid to come in. And then this is something that every transfer has to reapply every year. So just because they're here one year doesn't necessarily mean they're here for the next. So it all is going to depend on where we set our capacity. Now, again, that capacity can change. So looking through here, you see where most of that is. Obviously, July 1 is the start of the next year, so that's kind of when we'll start determining capacity for sure. And then enrollment. So after we do enrollment is when we will start taking transfers. Now, we did put some language in here to help somewhat grandfather in the transfers we already have, because I don't feel it's right to kick out what we've got. So looking at capacity, we've talked many times about this and where we set capacity. And, for pre-K, that's already set. It was predetermined, and it's basically 20 as long as we have an 8 in there. So it's 10 and then 20 with an 8, and that's where we're at pre-K. After talking about it, we kind of feel like 20 is a pretty good number pre-K through 5th. 20 is what is determined to be the max pre-K kids. Do you want 30 kindergartners? Well, some kindergartnens go to pre-K, some don't. So again, that's that balance. So we kind of suggest that 20 is where we set that. Now, as far as 6 through 12, we try to group these together, and we keep going back and forth of where do we want to set that capacity. So we're looking at somewhere between 20 and 22 is what we're looking at. We said a classroom can hold, 21, 22 comfortably.
Yeah.
25 if we stuff them in there like sardines. Now, here's why capacity is important. So if we set capacity at 20 and we have 17 in the class, and so we have, say, 4 wanting to transfer in, we take the first 3. That puts us at our max of 20. And let's say in September we get move-ins and 3 of them happen to be in that class. So now we're at 23 in that class. We can't kick out the transfers. Once we take a transfer, they're here. We can't kick them out, nor do we necessarily want to kick them out, because once they're here, I feel like they're our students anyway. So that's kind of where we look at capacity. So just because we set capacity at say 20 doesn't mean that's how many is in the class. Now pre-K, that is how many is in the class, because that's not a mandatory class. But from kindergarten on up, we have to take all in-district residency students. So just because we set that at 20 does not mean, hey, we're at 20, that's where we're going to stop. Because if we get move-ins, they do get to come to our school. So Anyway, that's kind of what we're looking at. Like I said, 6 through 12, we've kind of gone back and forth. We feel like 20 is a pretty good number for pre-K through 5th. You know, we're open to suggestions. Obviously, you guys,
So if we set everything at 20, that scenario happens, we do have the room in the classrooms to add the 3 more, which we'll have to change our,
we don't change capacity. We do add those 3, yes.
we do add those 3, but
But we don't change the capacity. So just because we have 23 in,
we don't have to
we
change it.
don't have to change it.
Okay.
Now, the following year, it may be something we have to look at, because if not, then technically, according to the law, those 3 transfers would then be booted, which, you know.
I would add, if I could, from our ASR, annual statistical report from last year, to our first quarter statistical report this year, we increased 17 students, and those have all been, you know, in district. So it is, you know.
All right.
We've had it every year. This year, we've had a lot of move-ins, so.
Had some from
we
Texas
consider-
and several from California, that never did, so that is one thing.
What's the largest class? Pre-K?
Pre-K K is our largest, there at 20.
20 both. What about high school?
18.
18.
So even if we set it at 20, you know, well, we're not there yet, we're still taking transfers. And honestly, I don't know, have we turned any, besides pre-K, have we
Only
turned
pre-K.
any transfers away this year? I mean, we haven't. So this really hasn't been that big of an issue. Obviously this year, for the first time since I've been here, pre-K was an issue, but. And that's not to say, like I said, at any time, any board meeting, we can look at capacity. I just don't like the idea of saying, okay, well, we're gonna raise this one to allow these kids, you know. I think we need to set a somewhat firm number, and then if we don't like that number, we can always come back to it.
Well, if we don't have to adjust capacity to fit the students that are in there, then, but we want to leave us room to have the kids in the classrooms.
Right. And I say that we don't have to adjust capacity. Once the year starts, transfers are in, and we don't have to change that capacity. Unless we're over capacity and we get another transfer wanting in, and we want to look at that. But, I mean, we set these for a reason so that we don't go over what we feel like we can fit in the classroom. You know, there does come a time when you get enough transfers that you need to split up classes, but that's going to be more teachers, more room, and everything else. So we're a long ways, I say a long ways, we're quite a ways from that, needing to split classrooms. So like I said, as far as 6 through 12, we're looking at somewhere between 20 and 22, but again, you guys, you can give me your opinion. And obviously, this is just a discussion, we're not taking any action, and action will be next month, so we'll hear your guys' thoughts on this.
I think 20 is a pretty good number to, you know, protect ourselves if we do have some move-ins and go over, not be crowding those kids too much.
You think 20 all the way through?
Just 20 all the way through. I mean,
Agreement on that?
I don't see any reason why we need to bump it a few more. I mean, 20 seems like we've still got room everywhere to cover everything.
And if we get in a situation where we don't, we can always review it. And, you know, like I said, if there's a case where, you know, kindergarten ends up with 21 and we don't want to kick out a transfer, we can always talk about next year making first grade capacity at 21 so that we don't kick out a transfer if we feel like we have the room. So,
Well, the part that I was worried about is I didn't know that we could still go ahead and have 23 in there, even though we set capacity without changing it. That's why I was asking that.
you can for the remainder of that year, because once you take a transfer, they're your students for the year, unless they decide to go somewhere else, but that would be on their own. And then at the end of the year, we will review, once we start reviewing applications for the next year, we'll review them as they come in order. But again, the ones that were currently in our school as transfers, we'll have to review them, and if they had attendance problems, or if we have a capacity issue or discipline problems, then we may not accept them back. You know, we still have that ability, but it'll be looking at them for the next year. The other thing is it's always kind of been siblings, like you allow one sibling in and then you kind of just allow the other ones to come. This will be determined on capacity, so because, you know, little Timmy moves in 3rd grade, because we have room, but his sister's in kindergarten and we're full, we might take one but not take the other. So that might be another situation where we look, do we have the room, can we raise our capacity? If not, you know, then we'll just have to tell the parent, look, we can take one but we can't take the other. That may make that decision not for them not to come as well, but.
That means you have to turn down the pre-K this year.
4, 3, 3.
Was that a one?
We had 4, and then one
One
didn't
didn't
come.
come, so we allowed the other one to come in, so
So 3 on the way.
3 still would have liked to come.
No, I didn't want it.
And then kindergarten's gonna depend on, you know, some pre-Kers
Well,
helping
back.
them on, some kindergartners helping them on, so what is that number gonna be, I don't know.
Right.
Like I said, but, okay. So we'll just set, right now, we'll set capacity at 20 and we'll, go through here. Now, the other thing is too, that kind of convolutes everything is, you know, if a student is a special needs student, needs to be on a IEP or a 504, but if they're on an IEP, they go on a caseload, and so we have to consider our capacity on caseload as well. So just because we have a 3rd grade transfer spot open, if our caseload is maxed out in IEP, then that might be another issue, you know, so. There's probably going to be a lot of ups and downs and changes through this process because this was kind of thrown out here and now we got to make it all work. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, item 7, vote to approve or not to approve fundraiser request for the 21-22 school year FFA.
Move to approve.
On the motion? Second. Garrett, second. Any vote, Kevin?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Hey, any new business?
I have no business.
Motion to adjourn.